All right, everyone, we are back for part 2 of this chapter. Make sure your cameras are on, please. Okay, Juan, thank you for joining us. Cameras, please. Your cameras on. Right, perfect. How's the volume right now? Because you guys were complaining right at the end that the sound was low. Is the volume good? Sound is good? All right, great. So I can scream or I don't have to scream anymore? All right. And Jen is on YouTube. Well, perfect. All right, so we're going to talk about forms of real estate agency. So we talked about agency being universal, general, or special agency, and then there's different forms of agency. We can have a single agency, we can have sub-agency, dual agency, no agency, or no sub-agencies. So we're going to start with, talking about all the single agencies. All right, some got it. Okay, good. Nobody knows the famous Beyonce song? All the single agencies? No? There you go. Oh, not related to Beyonce, but Clenard, I checked the record and you're good. Okay? All right. So, again, single agency means we represent one client. Simple. Very simple. Single agency. I represent one client. That could be the seller, could be the buyer, right? Doesn't matter. Just matters is single agency, I represent one client. Sub-agency, which is the way we operate most of the times because we're salespeople, right? We are sub-agents most of the times. So, salespeople, broker, and then either seller or buyer. But there's a different type of sub-agency. So there's the different type of sub-agency is if there's another agency representing. So it's not as common. Most states right now don't operate with it, or they've canceled it completely out of their map. They don't use it anymore. But the other type of agency is when, or sub-agency, is when there's Remax representing the client, let's say the seller, and then here comes Century 21 imposing themselves as sub-agents. The problem with sub-agency, if you guys remember, when you represent the broker, because you are sponsored by your broker, right? When you represent the broker, everything you do is on behalf of the broker. So that means that the broker is responsible for our actions, right? So if we go back to the previous sub-agency I showed here, anything we say and anything we do, the broker is responsible for, right? If we tell the buyer that the client will accept anything, well, the broker is responsible for our actions, right? And, of course, the client has to accept whatever we put in, or we're liable for the difference. That's one of the problems. In the other type of sub-agency I was explaining, like Remax, right? Do you want Century 21 agents making us, let's say we're Remax, making us liable for whatever they say to the buyers? No, we don't want that. So that's why sub-agency is not used as often as in the past. We do a clear separation of sub-agency. So again, sub-agency, that means it's an agent under another agent. Now, dual agency. Dual agency means we represent both the buyer and the seller. Dual agency. As simple as that. You represent both. No agency, that we'll talk about that later, but no agency means I don't represent neither. You guys can see here. Here it says I represent, so there's the direct line. And here they put dashes, like, hey, I'm helping you, right? When there's no agency, the agent is a facilitator. What does that mean? We're just helping the transaction. I'm going to help you, right? You need to, you're the buyer. You're not my buyer, right? I'm going to help you get all the way to closing. So I'm going to prepare a contract for you. You go see the property, right? But don't expect me to tell you about the conditions of the property. I mean, whatever I know, I know. If I don't know, I'm not going to research. I'm not going to take the extra steps. So that's what no agency means. Agency, right, means I owe you specific duties, including investigation of more information about the property. Here, no. If I know, if I was told, great. If not, look, I'm just helping you navigate through the transaction. That's it. I'm not going to go any extra step for you, right? So that's what no agency is. And then no sub-agency means you're direct to the client, like a broker. So let's talk about single agency in detail. So the agent represents one party in the transaction. The client may be either the seller or the buyer, as you guys know. If it's a seller agency, then in the traditional situation, the seller or landlord is the agent's client and the buyer or tenant is the agent's customer. We got this covered already, right? If I represent the buyer, that's the opposite, right? In this relationship, the property buyer or tenant is the client, and then the property owner or the seller is the customer. We don't represent. The real estate vernacular calls an agent of the seller or owner the listing agent. The listing agent represents the seller. We're listing or advertising a property. That's what it is. We're listing or advertising a property. So we're marketing the property. That's a listing agent. A broker who represents the buyer is a buyer's broker. Okay? That is easy. I just want to point something out. Where it says buyer's broker, sorry. It's the selling broker. Okay? There's a difference between seller's broker and selling broker. See, the seller's broker is the person that advertises. There's a huge difference. I want to make sure you guys understand this. Here's my cell phone, right? And let's say I want to sell this at Walmart. I'm going to go to Walmart and I put it on the display. Boom. Now, if I'm Walmart, I'm going to hire people. Guys, pay attention to me. I'm going to hire people, right, to sell. So I have employees there on the tech department. They're going to be looking at you like, hey, phone, you want to buy? Right? Isn't that what they do? Sometimes they even jump at you, right? You want to buy? Walmart doesn't do that anymore. Like, they're too lazy. But that's what they used to do. They'll jump at you. Look, cell phone, new cell phone. You want to buy? Right? So those are the selling agents. The listing agent is the one that went there and put on the shelf. Boom. I listed it. It's available, right? The selling agent, the one that accomplishes the sale, is the one that brings the buyer that says, hey, look, this is phone right here. It's an amazing phone. It has this, it has that, whatever, camera this, camera that, internet, whatever, right? You want to buy. The one that accomplishes the sale takes it off the shelf and says, here, buyer, take it. The one that accomplishes the sale is the selling broker, okay? The one that lists the property or puts the property on the market is the listing broker, represents the seller, right? And again, a lot of people get this confusing because selling broker, you think, represents a seller. No. Listing broker represents seller. Selling broker is the one that accomplished the sale by bringing the buyer. Make sure you guys take notes on this. Selling broker is the one that brings the buyer and accomplishes the sale. Could we be one and the same? Yeah, if I represent both parties, I'll be the listing broker in the beginning, but then I'm also the selling broker at the end because I brought the buyer and made the perfect marriage. So again, listing broker represents the seller. Selling broker is the buyer's broker, represents the buyer. Questions here? All right, good. Sub-agency guys are already covered. It's you, somebody below. There's directly between the agent and the broker, and then outside co-brokers and agents, as I showed earlier. We're gonna focus on the next one, which is Jen. Let me know if you're there. Senady, okay, you sat down. Great, you sat down at the right time for a dual agency. I saw you ran outside real quick. Yeah. All right, so dual agency. The dogs. We'll let the dogs out though. All right. You know what's sad? In a couple of years, nobody's gonna know that song. It's unbelievable. Like the new generation know that song. Terrible. Alexis, how old are you? Don't run away. Come back. Come back. Alexis, sit down. All right. I was talking to you. How old are you? 20. Did you hear this song, Who Let the Dogs Out? Did you ever hear it? Looking serious at it. Did you ever hear the song or no? It froze for a second. Let the Dogs Out? You have? Okay, cool. All right, so 20-year-olds still hear those songs. Okay, great. Right? A few years ago, it was like, I can't believe people used to listen to this music back in the day, right? And now you get to the age, you're like, oh wow, I'm that kind of guy. I used to say this, I used to say that. Now I'm talking about the new generation. Now everything is like humble. All right. So Alexis, I didn't ask if you had a dog. I asked if you knew the song about Who Let the Dogs Out. Right? It's important. For real estate, it's very important you guys remember this song. Oh, you just wanted to show them off. Got it. All right, cool. Show off. All right, dual agency. Guys, what is dual agency? Dual agency means you represent two people. So you're an agent for, because agency is employer-employee, right? So you're an agent for the seller and you're an agent for the buyer. You represent both. All right, here's the problem. Let me ask you guys. If I represent both parties, and agency means I have fiduciary duties, means that I owe specific duties to the principal. How can I represent both and give the best to both? Can I do that? Can I represent the seller without affecting the buyer? Can I represent the buyer without affecting the seller? It's tough, right? Very tough. So you know what? Let's not tell him anything. Let's not tell the buyer that I represent the seller. Let's not tell the seller I represent the buyer, and we're good, right? I'll do the best for both sides. They won't even know about it. And at the end, I just collect my check. Do you guys think that's something we can do? Let me know in the chat. Do you think that's something we can do? No, of course not. Of course not. In fact, what I just described to you guys is illegal. Dual agency in itself is illegal. To be legal, it has to be disclosed dual agency. What does that mean? It means that, hey, Mr. Buyer, I represent the seller. Are you okay with that? Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, I represent the buyer. Are you okay with that? So I have to let both of them know, because there's some type of conflict of interest. I'm getting paid full commission, right? That's the first thing, money. I have to let them both know that I represent the other side, and they have to be okay with that. If they're not okay, can I represent both? No, that'll be illegal dual agency. So to be legal, it must be disclosed. Both parties must be fully aware that I represent the other party. So dual agency means representing both principal parties in the transaction. The agent represents both the buyer and seller, or tenant and owner. For instance, if a salesperson completes a buyer agency agreement with a party on behalf of a broker, and the party then becomes interested in a property listed by the broker becomes a dual agent. Dual agency has become increasingly prevalent in with the advent of buyer and tenant representation. Dual agency may arise from voluntary, that means we have a specific agreement between the principal parties, or from the parties' actions, like implied agency. Conflict of interest. Dual agency contains an inherent conflict of interest. Since many of an agent's fiduciary duties can only be rendered to one party, dual agency is by definition difficult, not impossible. Informed written consent. As I was saying, they have to know, right? In states that permit dual agency, so not all of them do apparently, right? In states that permit dual agency, the agent must meet strict disclosure requirements, and principals must agree in writing to proceed with dual agency. In writing, they must say, yes, I agree. You can represent the buyer. Yes, I agree. You can represent the seller. Okay. Then we have disclosed voluntary agency. If it's disclosed voluntary, right? Disclosed, it's voluntary. Voluntary is disclosed. That means they're fully aware. The parties to the transaction may create dual agency by giving written consent to in disclosure forms, confirmation forms, and sales contract forms. For example, an agent represents a buyer who becomes interested in a property that the agent has listed with the seller. The agent then discloses the relationship to the principals, to both principals, and the principals agree in writing to move ahead. Disclosed dual agency thus is voluntarily created. Implied and undisclosed dual agency. If a broker, so we're just reading what I already explained, if a broker or agent acts in any way that leads a customer to believe that the agent is representing the customer, a dual agency has potentially been created. For example, a buyer makes confidential disclosures to the agent who works for the seller and exhorts the agent to keep them confidential. The buyer wants the house, but knows that he's going to lose his job in a month and probably will not qualify for financing. If the agent agrees to keep the information confidential, the agent has not only created an agency relationship with the buyer, but is now a dual agency situation. Moreover, if the agent fails to disclose the buyer's confidence to the seller, the agent has violated the fiduciary duty to the seller. Okay? So there's a lot of questions in the state exam that are similar to this. There's a lot of questions that go around who do you represent, who do you have specific duties to. This scenario, the buyer asked you something, but you never disclosed that you were going to keep something confidential. So you have to tell the seller, hey, seller, buyer told me something, asked me to keep confidential. I'm going to keep it confidential. I want to let you know that I now represent the buyer as well. Is that okay? Right? Because that's what it is. That's implied. If you accepted the confidentiality, then you accepted agency. Right? So it's undisclosed or implied dual agency. And that's illegal if the seller's not aware as well. So a lot of questions regarding who is who in the transaction. Okay? What are the duties of a disclosed dual agent? A dual agent's first duty is to disclose the agency relationship to both the principal parties or to withdraw from one side of the duality. After disclosing, the agent must obtain written consent of both parties. If both parties accept dual agency, the agent owes all fiduciary duties to both parties except full disclosure, undivided loyalty, and exclusive representation of one principal's interests. This is common sense. If I now represent both of them, can I disclose everything? No, I have to protect my client's confidentialities. Can I be loyal to one side and not to another? No. I have to be loyal to both sides evenly. Exclusive representation. I cannot pull more to one side again than to the other. So as a dual agent, if accepted, as a dual agent, I'm a mediator, right? But I'm still going to do the best I can for both of them. One thing I cannot do is argue on the price. I cannot help the seller negotiate the higher price. I cannot help the buyer negotiate a lower price. Everything else, I can help with. Okay? All right, this one's the most confusing one. Let me know if you have questions before we go here. Any questions before I get into no agency? Questions? All right. Then let me know that you're there. Like I might have lost her. All right, so transaction broker. Go here. In recent years, the brokerage industry has striven to clear up the question of who works for whom. Right? Who do you work for, right? And who owes? Oh, you there? Okay. For some reason, it shows me that YouTube, there's nobody watching. Weird. Okay, but you're there. All right, you had a question about dual agency. I just want to make sure you're understanding as we go. So in recent years, the brokerage industry has striven to clear up the question of who works for whom, right? And who owes fiduciary duties to whom. A recent solution allows the broker to represent no one in the transaction. So as a single agent, I either represent the seller or represent the buyer. As a dual agent, I represent both, right? As a transaction broker or facilitator, I represent no one. What I'm doing, guys, I'm not an agent of either one. All I'm doing is helping you conclude the transaction. I do not advocate the interests of one party over the other. What I do is helping with the transaction. Like one of the duties that I have is to account for all the money and property received or handled. I have to exercise reasonable, not full skills and care and knowledge and all that stuff that we talked about. It. Reasonable. This is the key word here. Reasonable skill and care. Right? I cannot just be also like, yeah, I'm going to help you close. Like this is where you go. Go over there and close. I cannot do that. I have to still walk you through certain things. I have to be there with you. I cannot just point and tell you go do it. Right? You wouldn't need nobody for that. But anyway, provide honest and fair dealing, represent all offers in a timely fashion, assist the parties in closing transactions, keep the parties fully informed, advise the parties to obtain expert advice or counsel, disclose to both parties in a residential sale transaction all material facts affecting the property's value, or protect also the confidences of both parties in the matter that would materially disadvantage one party over the other. So it's very similar to actually representing, right? Like these duties are very similar to actually representing. The thing is, since there's no fiduciary duties binding the transaction broker, The broker is held to the standards of dealing with customers as opposed to clients. So if you are a transaction broker or operating as a transaction broker, right? Everybody's a customer. That's how it is, right? So you have to, again, be honest, fair dealing, and reasonable care when dealing with customers. The same thing. Transaction broker is under no obligations. Look at this. I'm under no obligation to inspect the property for benefit of a party or verify the accuracy of statements made by a party. My job is to treat you as I treat customers. I'll yes you to death. I'll help you get what you want, but I don't have to go through extra steps or jump through hoops to help you. Okay? So I facilitate the transaction. That's all. Simple. At the end of the day, you're still doing what you need to do. So, what is the biggest difference between these agencies, guys? Before I go into this. What is the biggest difference? Again, single agency, I represent either the seller or the buyer. Dual agency, I represent both. Transaction broker, I represent neither. They're all customers. Can I represent the seller as a single agent and then represent the buyer as a transaction broker, so like no agency? Yes, it could be a combination. That means I'm telling the buyer, don't expect anything from me. I'm going to help you close. That's all, right? My first duty is to the seller, period. So can I do this? Yes. Can I do the opposite? Can I represent the buyer, right? And we go to a for sale by owner, and the for sale by owner, the seller says, as an example, seller says, yeah, you have the buyer, so might as well help me. Could you please help? Right? And I say, yeah, no problem. I'll help you. That's all. I'll help you. That's what a transaction broker is. I'll help you. Right? Now, I'll help you and I'll protect you. That's a client there. There's an agency there. I'll help you and I'll protect you. There's agency. You guys understand the difference? So whoever hires you, you become the agent. If both of them hire you, you're agent for both. If neither one of them hire you, you're a transaction broker. You're just helping them out. They're customers. And it could be a combination of any of these. Okay? Thumbs up? Okay, Tiana goes like, yeah, doesn't even look at me, like whatever. Like, okay, move on. Okay, so tell me. Where did you get lost? Guys, ask questions, I'm telling you. We're almost done with this chapter. We've got like still 2 hours to go, so I've been waiting for questions. Very important that you understand agency. The whole thing about the buyer? Which part? I said so many things about a buyer. Okay. Sam is like transaction broker, so they can choose either. So you need to clearly understand these. One of the reasons you need to clearly understand is because you have to be able to explain to each party what they can expect from you. So Sam, if I sit down with you, I have to go through what's called, in the state of New Jersey, it's called a CIS, Consumer Information Statement. I have to sit down with you and go like, hey, Sam, here's the thing. You're selling your house, so I could represent you as a sales agent. And this is what I'm going to do and what you can expect from me, right? In the future, if I find a buyer, I could also be called a dual agent. That means I represent both. If you're okay with that, this is what you can expect from me. Or I can say, look, as a transaction broker, so I'm going to give you all the options. As a transaction broker, which is the way I intend to work with you, Sam, as a transaction broker, look, I'm going to help you, and I'll do whatever it takes for this transaction to go through. That's pretty much what it is, right? But I have to explain all options to you, and as a client or a prospect, or even a customer, you have the option of saying, no, Bruno, You either represent me or we're not doing this. But I also have the option of telling you, Sam, look, I appreciate that, but I only operate as a transaction broker, right? It actually reduces my liability and it helps me close faster. So it's a benefit for you in a way. But that's the way I operate. So with that being said, I'm not going to accept this right here. I'm not gonna list your property. Is that okay? Right? No harm, no foul. But I have to explain. The problem with most real estate agents is that they don't explain anything. They say, hey, just sign here, here, and here, and I'll fill it out later. Don't worry about it. I'll be right back. Right? And they just walk away. But you're supposed to be able to explain the differences between these. Okay? Kiana, so I'm the agent. I can't do both, but I can. I can't do both, but I can. No, you can. You can do both. Look, I can represent you and Sam at the same time. It's just difficult, right? Because I cannot pull more to one side or to the other. But can I represent both? The answer is yes. And I'll get paid full commission for it. Okay? I'm representing both. But Tiana, if you're the buyer and Sam's the seller, and Sam says, I want 300,000, and Tiana, you go like, yeah, not 300,000, 150. Okay? All I can do is relay information. But I cannot help you negotiate the price. I represent both of you to the best of my ability. Right? You're both up here. It's not like representing the seller and then the customer is here. No, you're both up here. It's you first, then me. But I cannot pull more to one side or to the other. I have to be equal to both. Okay, that's dual agency. As far as transaction broker or facilitator, transaction broker, I don't represent Tiana. I don't represent Sam. I'm just helping you guys conclude this sale. I'm going to help you like preparing documents, and that's it. Stuff that you don't know, I'll help you. You guys understand? That's it. Sam, as far as your question, do you still get commission? Absolutely. You better. You think I'm going to work for free? As much as I love helping people, I got to put food on the table. Right? I have 4 kids. Ain't no game. You know? I put food on the table. Kidding me? And help for free. I already do a lot of charity work. Not in the sales transaction. So, yeah, in other words, you're the messenger. Sure, you can look at it that way. Who would pay the commission? Says Suniti. Whoever agrees to. So usually the listing, so usually the seller agreed to pay. Representation, as we said earlier, guys, in the first half, representation is not determined by who pays the commission. A representation is not determined by who pays the commission. And the seller at the time of listing usually agrees to pay the commission. The difference is you're saying, and when we get to listings, we'll talk about this better, but you're saying that you're selling for $300,000, right? We got it, $300,000. That's a sales price. That's a listing price. I'm sorry, listing price. We're asking for 6% commission. We're going to split that 3-3, right? To whoever brings the buyer, they get 3%. And then right here, there's boxes. And the boxes say, if you're going to be a transaction broker, if you want to be a seller's agent, right? So there's different boxes, and you check the box. And then you want to put on the MLS. Yes. So it does not change the commission, the payout does not change because I'm a transaction broker. What changes is what the seller can expect of me and what the buyer can expect of me. I don't represent you. I'm going to help you. Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, I'm going to help you sell your house for $300,000. Commission is 6%, right? I'm going to help you. That's not a problem. I'm going to help you. Same commission. No more, no less, same commission. MLS is multiple listing services where we advertise the listings to all other agents. Okay? But again, don't worry about it because we're going to talk about that later. The point was, if you're even going to be, it's checkboxes. If you're going to be a transaction broker or seller's agent, you have to explain these things to the client. All right, let's see. Jen, when does the broker earn his commission? When he finds a buyer. Earning and collecting are two separate things. Earning a commission is for the job that you were hired to do. Here, listing means I'm going to advertise, right? I'm going to advertise to find buyer. That's what a listing means. Advertise to find the buyer. So as soon as I find the buyer, my job is done. I've earned my commission. All right? So does that mean I'm going to get paid right away? No. Earning, I know that question's on the test. That's why in my evening class yesterday I was talking about that. So earning and collecting are two separate things. You earn your commission, all right? You earn your commission just like your hours. Let's say you work 40 hours. This is what I was explaining yesterday. You work 40 hours a week. During this period of time, you've earned your hours. At the end of the week, you get paid. Right? During the 40 hours, as you work, if you only work 30 hours, you're going to earn 30 hours. So you get paid for 30 hours. If you worked 40, you've earned 40, so you get paid. In a real estate transaction, it's the same thing. Okay, you put an offer, that means you have a buyer, and then offer is accepted. Right? As soon as it's accepted, it becomes a contract. During this period of time, you've earned your commission, and you get paid at closing. Okay? So Jen, when do you earn your commission? Once you accomplish what you're hired to do. You're hired to find a buyer. They put an offer, it was accepted, that's it. You earn your commission. Can you collect your commission right away? No. Usually, you earn your commission, right? But you only get paid at closing because this is now pending other stuff. It's pending inspections, appraisal, right? Title, and so on and so on. So because things are pending, you've earned it, but we're waiting until everything clears to get paid at closing. All right? Earning, you got to look at the question the way it asks. If the question says earned, it's once the contract is accepted. If the question talks about collecting or getting paid, is at closing. Okay? Anyway, totally unrelated. Let's go to agency disclosure rules. You're welcome. Tiana, imagine the baby does that to you every time you nail an answer. Like, yay, baby. Imagine the baby does that to mommy. Goes, mommy, yay, you had one right. Or two right, or three right. That'd be awesome. By the way, just so you guys know, when you're taking the school exam, on this end, I'm watching all the exams, right? And as we're going through, okay, let me see. Edith, great. Martin, amazing. Nidia, awesome. Right? And we're like, that's Pedro and I, that's what we're doing on this end. We're like, yay, they're doing great. All right? And then it gets to the end, and some of you are like, you're doing so great. And then some of you are like, start changing answers. And you know what sucks on my end? That I cannot call you. I cannot go there and press a button, right? And say, hey, please. Oh, there you go. There's the baby. Hey, there you go. Anyway. So I cannot get there, press a button and say, hey, please, just stop changing answers, submit. I cannot do that. It sucks. We hear it's like watching the the best thriller ever, right? Best thriller movie ever. We hear like suspense all over. They're gonna make it, and then all of a sudden they change hands. We're like, oh, right, and then no, they're gonna make it, and then right, and we cannot do anything on our end except eat the popcorn. Like it's a lot of fun. Like here eating popcorn, just watching you guys. I'm just kidding. The point is, never change answers, and you'll pass. If you change answers, guaranteed fail. 99% of the times, guaranteed fail. All right, and on this end, we want to be like this. We want to be like this to you guys. All right, that's it. Yep, there you go. All right, so, hey, Rose. Rose is there. Okay. Busted? Yes. Change answers? Yes. There you go. Agency disclosure rules. Question. This is the question of the day. It's going to be several times a day. What does this mean? Oh, look at that. Sam, at least my advice worked for something. Sam took my advice and passed, got a 90 in the cosmetology exam. There you go. Now she's getting into real estate so she can make up the houses. All right, so agency, yes, Celine, thank you. Employer, employee, or employee-employer relationship. Very good. Can't believe my advice works for other courses. Sam, you know I love you. Too long of a relationship already. we're good friends. That she decided to get into real estate, I have no idea, but we're good friends. And if it worked for cosmetology, I'm happy. All right, so agency disclosure rules. So the objectives of disclosure. This is very, very important. The objective of disclosure. Why do we have to disclose? So traditionally, brokers and agents have disclosed to customers whose interests it is that they are serving. This traditional ethic is now in many states required by law. So agents must know what agency disclosures they have to make, to whom, and when the business relationship they must make them. So, very important. It says right here, agents must know. But I can guarantee you guys, if you guys call a real estate company right now, and if you call an agent, any agent that you guys know, call one. Tell them to explain to you the difference between single agency, disclosure agency, and transaction broker. The first two, they might nail it. Transaction broker, barely anybody knows how to explain. Big mistake. Because if they don't know how to explain, they don't give the disclosure form that's required in certain states. They don't give it to them because, again, they don't know how to read it. They don't know how to explain it. Very important. So the thing about disclosure, so the objective or the goal of disclosure is to remove confusion about who an agent is working for. Don't you think, you guys, buyers, sellers, let's say we're not realtors yet, so let's say buyers and sellers or tenants, don't you think you guys should know who the realtor is working for? Are they working on your behalf or the other side? Do they have your best interest or their best interest? Shouldn't you know this stuff? Who bought a house? Raise your hand if you bought a house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, great. Have you sold a house? Your house? No? Okay. So you bought houses. Keep your hand up if the agent explained to you the relationships, the single, the dual, and transaction broker. Keep your hand up. Just Yanitza? Wow. That sucks. I had like 5 people with a hand up that bought houses. The agents never explained to you guys? That sucks. I guess that's part of the reason why you're here, I guess. Right? Some of you is like, no, I just want to try something new. Some of you are like, damn realtor. I'm going to show them. I'm going to become one and prove them that I'm better. Right? I always get like mixed reasons why people get here, but one of them is they got a bad experience in the transaction and decided, well, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, guys, you have to. This chapter is very, very important. It's heavily tested. You have to know how to explain the differences. Jen also says no, it was not explained. Great. I had a few years ago. I had a client. I'm sorry, a student. He's a cop, a retired cop from Linden, and he's sitting in the class, sitting all the way back. He goes like, as I'm going through this, he goes like, raises his hand. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. It was like, this form is supposed to be given right at the beginning, and we're gonna go over this. It's supposed to be given right at the beginning, like before anything. I should know who represents me and how. I say, yeah, that's what the law says. He goes like, Bruno, the first time I saw that form or that disclosure was at closing. So guys, he went through the whole transaction, and at closing, he saw the form that explains everything. And you guys know that his signature was there? Like he signed acknowledging it, and it says, I don't remember this paper at all. At all. And I closed in like a month. It's impossible for me not to remember something from a month. Right? Because he bought cash or whatever. So he closed in a month. But are you guys understanding this? Sometimes what realtors do is with the first piece of paper that you have to sign, first piece of paper, they slide the disclosure there and say, hey, sign here too. Do not date it. It says, nope, I only got it at closing. That's the first time I saw it. All right. So let's look at this. This requirement. So hold on a second. I'm sorry. Martha, could I sell a house to my husband, or could that be considered a conflict of interest? Look, I don't know how to say this. Can I sell a house to my husband? Like, I don't know how much money you want to make on him, but yeah, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. There's not conflict of interest at all. You're licensed. You can buy a house for yourself. That's not a problem either. Okay? Again, if you're selling to your husband, which, sorry, I just have to say this because if you're married, then it's to both of you. But if you're selling to your husband, right? You just got to let him know, hey, honey, I could represent you. I could represent both. Or you know what? I could represent neither. And I choose not to represent you. I'll help you buy, but I don't represent you. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter who it is. If it's your husband, if it's your parents, if it's your kids, it really doesn't matter who it is. As an agent, as a salesperson, you have to explain if you're going to represent that party or not. That's what we're talking about. So can you? Yes. Right? But piggybacking on your question again, can I sell a house to my husband, right? You can, and being husband, I assume that you're saying a house for us is just I'm the agent and that's the one that's buying under his name. But you can even use your commission towards closing costs or towards down payments. Instead of you getting paid, it could be a credit towards the money you have to put into the transaction. So there's great advantages to being a realtor. I mean, a salesperson. A few years ago, I took this course. Well, several years ago, I took this course, but I was an investor. I took this course and I was like, nah, because it doesn't sound good to balance things out this way, right? I don't know how I'm going to be able to do it. Later on, I started realizing, wait a minute, it's dumb of me. The seller pays the commission. I'm losing a lot of money every time I go buy a house, right? I'm losing a lot of money every time I go buy a house and somebody else represents me, right? Because I can use that money towards the down payment, towards the closing. So I'm an investor. I buy houses, and I represent myself in the transaction. For sale, when I'm selling, I don't. I have an agent always, because sales are too emotional. It's our stuff selling. So I always step out of the way and have somebody else sell. But on the purchase, you can use your commission to buy. Think about it. So, Martha, yeah, absolutely. You can either keep the money or credit the money towards the transaction. Not a problem. All right, the other question was, if the last owner hasn't given you the deed to the home, can he pull? Hold on. We're talking about agency. What happened there? Kind of. Like, we're talking about agency. Where does this come from? Okay. I'm like, I'm going in a great flow. Even Jen says, "Oh, we're finally getting to the juicy stuff, right?" I was asking about a home, but I was asking regarding agency. But why? You never got the deed? You never got the deed? Okay. Because deeds are in public records. You can go pull the deeds if you want. It should be there. If it's not there, we'll talk about it in a later chapter, but you can do a quitclaim deed or you can do a quiet title to record the deed. So can he pull a mortgage on the property? If it's under his name, the previous owner, if it's under his name, he can do whatever he wants. That's why you want to correct the issue as soon as possible. Okay. Ophelia says, too many papers to sign. Nope. I'll tell you right now. On our end, we got like 2 or 3 papers to sign. Us, agents. Okay? On the client's end, yeah, they have a lot of papers to sign. Especially at closing. At closing is like 300 signatures. We go like through 20-something pages and initial here, sign here, initial there, sign here, all in the same page. And then let's notarize, and then let's go to the next one. Crazy. But for us, not that many. Sometimes I say things like people think that I'm devaluating our job, our profession. But no. We technically do not do much, but it's the know-how, right? Knowing how that allows us to get paid what we get paid. You guys understand? But we don't do much. The most that we do is marketing and trying to find more buyers or more sellers. But once you're in the transaction, you don't do much. Okay? Compared to what we're getting paid. That's what I'm saying. So we're getting paid for the knowledge, for the expertise. All right. All right. Now, recent legislation requires an agent to disclose to all parties the fact that the agent represents one party and does not represent the other. In other words, an agent must inform the client and customer that the agent represents the client and does not represent the customer, unless it's a dual agency. The agent must disclose agency relationships whenever there's a transfer of real estate interests, whether interest is a fee, partial fee exchange, leasehold, sublease, assignment, air right, or subsurface right. If there's any type of interest, I have to disclose any potential conflict of interest or agency relationships. Okay. Finally, we are on page 151. Same thing I already talked about. Just a quick summary. Agent who plans to represent the buyer must disclose the import of the proposed transaction relationship in writing before the representation agreement is executed. So the buyer must know upfront or that what they can expect. Okay. Customer disclosure. So that you don't represent them yet, but you must disclose the relationship on first contact. Right there. So buyer calls you up and says, hey, Bruno, I want to buy. And you have to tell them right away, hey, hold on. I know you want to buy, but I have to disclose certain things. So this is key. Okay, this is key. Okay, informed written consent. You guys already know what this is. Prohibited disclosures, the last thing. State regulations prohibit a dual agent from making certain disclosures. For instance, a dual agent, unless expressly instructed by the relevant party, usually cannot disclose. Remember I said that before, unless Nidia clearly stated that she has more money. Remember the transaction with Danny, right? So, we cannot express to the buyer that the seller will accept less than the listed price. We cannot express to the seller that the buyer will pay more than the price submitted in the written offer. We cannot express the motivation of any party concerning the transaction, or that the seller will agree to financing terms other than those offered. Okay, so we already covered all this, but you got to understand, this might be in the question, at least these two might be in the question somehow. You cannot say buyer has more money or seller will accept less money. Okay? Very, very important. Questions? I'm going to repeat this a million times in the next coming chapters, just so you guys know. Make sure you study this chapter properly. Okay, make sure you do the Quizlets, very important, and the reviews at the end of each chapter. Okay? And we still have an hour and 20 minutes. What do you guys think? Do chapter 12? Yes, no? So the screen freeze? Everybody's just like, what? Yeah, Alexis, thank you. All right. Some are saying yes. Some are like, I'm going to murder those that say yes. No, it's too long for us to get into the next chapter. Anyway. So, with that being said, if you guys have no questions, we have a very early release. Look at that, 12:40. Doesn't even feel like that we had class today, right? Doesn't feel like it. All right, guys, ask me questions. I'll see you guys at 5:30 if you're joining the evening class. If not, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you, guys. Have a blessed day.